Hello, and welcome to this week's From the Vault episode from the Magdalen House podcast. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and affectionately known by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we bring you a new release. In our From the Vault episodes, we share past podcast releases from our 3 different podcast series: Recover Ed, Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics, and Hope for the Family. Our podcast aims to connect, inspire, and educate alcoholics, loved ones, and the community to the Magdalen House and the services we offer. We are glad you're here, and thank you for listening.
Welcome to Interview with a Recovered Drunk. Today our guest is Rosalind, and she's a social detox coordinator. And I first met Rozzie. I don't know if you even remember this or not, but I feel like I say this a lot too, but when I worked at the 2-4, one of the things I talk about is I get to know, I feel like I get to know women through the women they sponsor. And so Rozzie has always, as long as I've been around, has been on the firing line, super down for the cause of helping alcoholic women. So I feel like I know you, like I said, through the women you sponsor, which is so cool the way that this whole thing works.
Wow.
I'm so happy to have you. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time now, so I'm super excited. If you could, so what we'll do is we'll end up opening up for questions to the women in the group to be able to ask questions if they want. But if they don't have any questions, I always have questions. And ladies, sometimes I can just start on a roll and I want to ask this, and I want to ask this, and I want to ask this. But ultimately, this is for you all first. So please, you see me doing that, but you have a question, please do not be afraid to interrupt me or to speak up. Because like I said, this is for you all first. So Roz, I just would like for you to introduce yourself and just give a little bit of background to qualify yourself as an alcoholic, and then what led you to Maggie's, because I think that's where you got sober.
Awesome. My name is Rozzie. My birth name is Rosalind. I like Rozzie better. My friends call me that. But what qualifies me as an alcoholic is basically that I can't start drinking without developing the phenomenal craving. Something happens as soon as I take one drink, and I don't know what's going to happen each time. And there has been some really unfortunate step 1 experiences. The last one was it was a spree. I call it the spree of all sprees. I think that's in the big book. I decided, my obsession told me I just started drinking nonchalantly, I wasn't an alcoholic with some friends. It's crazy. I had sworn off liquor for 10 years because of what had happened. I had a very strong desire not to drink again. And like I said, I started drinking without even considering any of that. As nonchalantly as if I, had been able to do that my whole life. And my life spun out of control and ended up at Maggie's. Thank God for them. Because I had gone to so many treatment centers that they were kind of my way of managing my alcoholism. I would use them to kind of sober up and then swear off. And then, my mind would take me right back. I didn't know that. I had no idea that's how I've been living for 30 years. I was taught this by Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm real grateful because I had no idea what the hell was wrong with me. I mean, when I walked into Maggie's, I was like, this is what I said to myself. Damn. You did it again. You're going to have to die before you stop this. That's what I really said to myself. That's the honest truth. I really didn't believe that there was any hope. It was that real desire of hopelessness my drama, I call it, I like the big book because it says, in this drama of life. So, I thought that was why I was so, I couldn't stop drinking. But the bottom line is that if I take one drink, something happens in the mind and body, right? And I'm all, it may not be right away, but it eventually I end up head down. I like to say this: head down, ass up. That's where I end up. That's the truth. And anyway, Maggie's taught me what the problem was. They told me what they knew about alcoholism. Thank God for that. I believed them. That's the main thing, is that I believed it. I knew that was me. I knew it. And that was the first time I knew that when I left there that I was going to drink again. I knew I was going to drink again. So instead of relying on me, I built a relationship with my higher power, who's all powerful, all knowing, guiding intelligence is a book. I love the big book. All powerful, guiding, creative intelligence. That's what it is. And there was is history after that. I gave my alcoholism to that power. And that was January the 12th, 2017. I hadn't drank since. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question? Okay, I do. One of the things that I know about you I've heard it from women that you sponsor, is that your thing is We Agnostics. And I've had the pleasure of being able to hear you on a Maggie's meeting, breaking down, reading We Agnostics, and you do such a good job. And so I was just wondering if you could speak to, I guess, step 2 and We Agnostics in the big book, if you can just speak on that for however long.
Wow, I could probably talk about that. Thank you for asking me about that. Step 1 is the problem, and there ain't nothing, if you're an alcoholic, ain't a dang thing you can do about it. I tried. So step 2 is We Agnostics, and it addresses everybody. We think that it addresses an atheist. I like when Bill W. says people are rarely atheists. I mean, there are some, but very rare. But the majority, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak in general, but I was an agnostic. I didn't realize it. I really was. I had completely evaded and ignored the spiritual part of life. The material world had me completely in its grips. And We Agnostics takes me from that point right there. I don't need to get ready. That's really important for an alcoholic, is that we're already at step 1. We're all beat up, I was beat down. I was never going to be ready to be good enough. I'll say that. For the spiritual realm of life. And We Agnostics says that deep down inside of every woman, man, or child is the fundamental idea. And that's where I'm going to find my solution, and that I can start right now. I don't have to wait till I even get to step 12, because that's kind of what I came into AA I think I came in the 80s. And I was like, I'm going to have to do all this stuff to get, whatever they said I'm going to get. And I didn't want to do all that. But step 2 is really, you can start right there. Anybody can, even if you're atheist. Because what it's saying is that lay that aside. I mean, it just walks you through it. What we think we already know about the spiritual realm, which I can confess, I knew nothing. I honestly, I mean, I had thought about, like it says in the book, what they had taught me as a kid, or I had thought about what my parents kind of believed. You know, that's as far as I'd ever gotten. And I hadn't given it a fair chance at all. You know, I was so self-reliant. And it's saying for me to lay that to the side. It tells me, first thing it says is that I don't have any power. And that's step one. It says lack of power, that was my dilemma. And I know that's me because I've been trying to quit this damn drinking for years, or it doesn't even have to be years. I told myself I was never going to do this again, and I didn't have any power to stop it. And my problems are piled up, literally. You know, my life is nowhere near being free, nowhere near freedom. And so in we Agnostics, it says that the book is going to teach me how to find that power, and that I can start with my own conception, no matter how inadequate that is. And so for me, that was just simply to believe that I didn't create anything and something had to have created me. Something created this. And it starts to tell you, you know, about how the material world, there's got to be something underneath that. It gets into all of this science. But the bottom line is that because of all that, the laws, those vast laws and all of that, that it couldn't have just appeared out of nowhere. It couldn't have. And that was enough for me to believe that, you know, something had created this world and me. And in order to do that, you got to be powerful. You got to have some power. And I had none for this drink problem. And so I was willing to start right there and relying on, hey, there's got to be something out there. And then it starts talking about, you know, alcohol is a great persuader. That's my favorite part of the Agnostic. That and God is everything. I love that part. But it starts saying that I really don't have a time to analyze what that power is. That, you know, that I just need to acknowledge, be willing to believe that there is something more powerful than me, and be willing to do the rest of the work to find that power by which I could live. And it tells you how to do that, literally. It tells you exactly how to do that. Deep down inside of you. It's not like outside of you, it's inside of you. Is that good enough? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, good stuff. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, I have another one. This is also going based on the women that you sponsor. So the vibe that I get is that you are a very good person to call when you're wrapped up, like when I'm wrapped up in the bondage of self. The vibe that I get from the women you sponsor is that you would be a good person to call. And so I was wondering if you could speak on what it is to be wrapped up in the bondage of self, right? What that looks like, and then the solution to that.
You know, that's a tough one. You're getting a little bit deep because I'm an alcoholic, and I believe that my higher power is the only one that can really relieve me of that.
Right.
And so the closest I've ever gotten to not being in self is when I'm helping someone else. But you can't help someone else 24 hours a day. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. So there's a balance in being in self and being out of self, but knowing the difference, I think, is the beauty of knowing that, because I never knew that. See, I never knew that. I thought you know, that I needed to think about me. Like that was what I was put on earth to do. Like I was born to like pull myself up by my bootstraps and, you know, keep all my stuff together and get all my ducks in the row. And so this is totally opposite of that. Totally opposite of that. And what I find is that's a spiritual experience. You're talking about spiritual experiences. That's what that is. When you are out of yourself and you're constantly thinking about other people, that is a spiritual experience in itself. That right there. And the way to do that is to just, you have to make effort to put yourself in a position where you're available to help people. Now, one of the things that I'm so blessed to have been taught is that I always tell people I'm available. I'm available. All right. Anybody that I work with or anybody that calls me in the program, or, you know, I don't tell people yes and me no now. Don't get me wrong, because that's a problem, because then you get resentful, you know, and you done told somebody you'll do all this stuff for them and you really, you know, but I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is that I make myself available to all the women in my life, right? And I don't concern myself with how that's going to work out, right? If they call me at 3 and I'm over here at 4, you know, how am I I don't even think about that. I really don't, honestly. If somebody says they need me, I say I'm available, and it works out. And I believe my higher power does that for me. I'm convinced of that, because I have in the past been working with so many people, and for a split second I thought, how in the world are you going to do all that? That's a lot. That's a lot. And then it was a fleeting thought, because I was like, well, God's going to give me the strength. My higher power is going to work this out. You know, I just have to be available. That is so important, because bondage of self I will shoot myself in the foot by trying to control all of that, you know, all of that. And that's not my job. My job is to be available, and it works. If I say I'm always available, I'm always available. Always. Is that help? Does that answer the bondage of self question? Because I think we're all selfish. We honestly are selfish.
Yeah.
That's really the truth. I'm a realist. We're very selfish people. And when we're not, that's from our higher power. That's a spiritual thing that happens to us alcoholics, and we're blessed with it, because, you know, a lot of people don't have that solution. It's a heck of a solution. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question?
I have a quick question.
Okay.
I know I was in the house in 2019, so I remember you doing overnights at that time, and I'm sure that you sponsor several women. Can you tell me, from a sponsor point of view, I'm not currently sponsoring, but what are some red flags that you see with your sponsees that just kind of signal off your little spiritual feelers about your sponsee? And I'm just coming from the experience of, when I'm working in 10, 11, and 12, I get this, like, my personality wants to be like all in, on fire. And then as soon as I have a setback, I'm like, bah, I just ruined everything. Do you see those things? Do you see patterns or red flags? And is there anything you can recommend or suggest from a sponsor point of view, like, hey, these are some of the things you may want to look for? I hope that's a pretty clear question.
I don't really quite understand the question. from my understanding, you're saying that if I'm sponsoring somebody, like, do I recognize when they're off the beam or on the beam? Is that the question? Okay.
Perfect. That's a perfect summary of the question that I asked.
I am so simple. I don't really get into, like I said, this is a drama, the drama of life. I don't really get into that so much with sponsees as I do the triangle. My sponsor taught me this. She said it's amazing how when you think you really have a problem, that if you focus on, you know, unity, service, and recovery, just keeping that going in balance, everything just seems to work itself out. When you said when you're not doing things perfectly, you get down on yourself, that is the bondage of self. I'm glad that's what that looks like, because you're never going to do this perfect. You're never going to be, but your higher power, you know, what you choose to call your higher power, your God, is using you. And that's what this is all about. It's really not about you at all, or me. It's really not. But I get to have a good life as a result of that. I mean, I have a great life, really good life. But it's not really about, you know, how perfectly I 10-step or 11 or 12, because a lot of times I don't feel like, you know, this real spiritual person, but I pray anyway. And I do the same thing every day. And when I mess up, I just mess up. And if somebody I'm working with mess up, they just mess up. I think this is all about how quickly you can move through things, really, to forgiveness. This is all about how quickly can I let stuff go. The tools are there for me to work through things. I'm not saying you're not going to feel things and go through life. Life is still going to happen, but you got tools that will help you get through things. We're doing this so we can survive the low spots ahead. For real. Because life is going to happen to you, you know? You can't take yourself too serious, and you got to wear this world as a loose garment. This is just a world, you know? We're talking about the spiritual world, not the material world. It's, you know, there's a difference. Big difference. Yeah. Okay. I'm a big time blabbermouth. Y'all got to stop me.
I think, well, I first want to say, I love how you said how quickly you can let something go, because I was talking to a friend earlier, and I was telling her, like, we're not going to do things perfectly. And, like, my head, I'm still a crazy person sometimes, you know? And yesterday, something so small happened, and it took me 2 hours to let that shit go. And I've been sober for 4 years, and I know what the tools are, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I really loved how you brought that up. So thank you. I think Crystal had a question, and then I saw Galaxy S9 raise their hand. So we'll go with Crystal first.
Yeah, you kind of already answered it for me. You know, working with others and praying even when you don't want to. But what are other ways that you grow in your spirituality on a daily basis?
So honestly, when I meditate on something that I actually do, because it's really ironic that I'll read something or somebody will send me something, you know, because I'm really connected to a lot of people, and then that'll be either happening in my life, or it'll be the answer to something that I needed to know, or I'll get to actually apply that to my life. You know? That's what I've learned. Is that's it. And I mean, I don't know when that's going to happen, and I don't have any control. I just pray and meditate every day. You know, and you know, and it'll come, or I'll give it to someone else, and they'll be like, "Bam, that's what I needed." You know, just what they needed. He doesn't make too hard of terms on those who seek him. I'm seeking every day. That's all. That's the difference between the Rosalind, self-reliant Rosalind, and God-reliant Rosalind. So I'm seeking outside of myself. All right.
Galaxy S9, do you want to ask a question?
Hey, Rozzie.
Hey.
Hey, girl. So you talked about, your relapse and, not being able to. Okay, I'm really bad at this. I'm new at being on Zoom. I'm stupid about this, but you said something about like messing up. Okay, that's what I want to hear you talk about. Messing up.
Messing up. I'm good at that.
Okay.
That's an easy one.
Okay.
I love the book. I love Alcoholics Anonymous book. I get to read it over and over and over and over with people. So I'm really blessed to have that opportunity. And each time I read it, I get something different each time. But left to our own devices is the first thing I came to when you said that. We'll drink. And so I have been doing that for about 30 years. And I've got a hell of a criminal past, criminal record as a result of that. I think I've got about 9 felonies, probably. I remember I wanted to be a real estate agent, and I did my background check. It was so depressing to actually see it. I was in oblivion through all of my 20s. I can barely remember them. But just a rebellious, I was a mess. But I thought I could stop whenever I got ready. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't be able to stop. I think that was the game changer. Because during those years, to me, I know it's crazy it may sound, but, I was having fun. Very, very sick way to have fun. But it was, to me, adventurous and fun. But what wasn't fun, of course, was being locked up and all of that. That was not fun. But that wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. Because I was once locked up for 8 years. Well, I couldn't drink in those 8 years. I was kind of like the guy that the doctor told him he'd have to be locked up and have a bodyguard for the rest of his life if he wasn't going to drink. And that's what jails did for me. And I thought that was how I was going to survive, is I was always going to have to be locked up or guarded. And my family, they tried. Bless their hearts. I held those people hostage. They tried everything on earth to stop me from drinking. But me, myself, I thought, man, one of these days, something so bad is going to happen that I'm never going to drink again. And God dang it, it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I kept drinking. That was never going to happen. there was never going to be anything bad enough to make me stop drinking. And I didn't realize that until my last step one experience. I really realized the hopelessness of this disease. I really came to grips with that. You know, there are people, and being sober just for a few years, a lot of my friends have died. Working at Maggie's, I've had to see a lot of people die from this disease. And in the big book, it talks about one of his friends, Bill W. says, one old chap committed suicide in his house. And one of my friends committed suicide. Yeah. So and then it says we have this deadly earnestness. Now I love to joke, and I'm really a goofy person deep down inside. I'm just goofy. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. But in my heart, I know this is a death sentence. I know that. I know that this disease doesn't care anything about what, my abilities, my age. It doesn't care about my family or my children. And I'm just one drink away from that life. Just one drink. That's all it takes. One drink. So, so I do this because this is how I'm living. This is what keeps me alive. Yeah. Now I haven't had the obsession in a very long time. But that's only because of the daily reprieve that I get, and that's true. It's because of what I do every day. If I stop doing that, surely I'll drink again. I believe that.
Yes, hi, Rozzie. I love you. Hi, Stephanie.
I love you so much.
I love you too. I do have a question. You said God doesn't give two harder terms. What if the harder terms that you're suffering through are terms that you put on yourself? Did you ever feel that? Yeah. Like self-imposed terms?
Yeah. That's why I love We Agnostics so much, because it tells me up front that I have to lay aside my prejudice. And so that word, to me, it means what I think I know. It's almost like, then it starts talking about the Wright brothers' childish faith. It's almost like I become a child again. You see, what I think I know is blocking me, and it tells me what's blocking me is my sensitiveness and my unreasoning prejudice and my stubbornness. So it's saying, it's telling me what to do. It's just, for right now, lay everything I think I know to the side and do the work, do the rest and steps.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I noticed, for me, for a lot of times, I wasn't willing to do that. I had to analyze everything. I had to know everything before I would commit. But alcohol is a great persuader. It finally beat me into a state of reasonableness. Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking the question. I was just thinking about that set aside prayer whenever you were talking, how important and awesome that prayer is. Does anybody else have a question?
Actually, Stephanie, I do have a question.
Yes,
really
go
quick.
ahead.
I was actually going to ask Rozzie later about this, seeing as how I'm lucky enough to talk to her daily. But maybe other people might run into it as well. So I've started going to I found a home group here, started to go to meetings actually in person. And the other day, like I'm going again tonight, but the other day, someone, like right on the front, inside the cover, just where it says the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And a couple individuals there, like, you never recover. Like, you are not, like, people that introduce themselves as recovered, they're not. You're always recovering. And I know what I've learned from not just you, but Maggie's and everything, like, you do recover from that obsession. And like, how do you address that? Do you just let it go? That's their thing. Do you say something? Do you not? Like, I mean, I know everyone has their own program, but how do you handle that?
You know, I've been really, I haven't really I've never had anybody say that to me. My home group is Lakeside Group. It's in Rockwall. And I don't remember anybody saying, I haven't heard that we're recovering in a long time. I remember hearing that in the beginning when I first went to AA, and that was a turnoff. I was like, you know what? I think I'd rather just drink. I don't want to be recovering for the rest of my life. You know, I was just gonna drink instead. But I was real happy to find out that, you know, I could live without the obsession to drink. And I'm pretty sure that's what the book is saying, that hopeless state. I think the recovered part is from the hopeless state of mind and body. And as long as you know that, Brittany, and believe that, I think that's the best you can do for anybody, is live that yourself. Live it, believe it, and live it. Because people are not so interested in what you say as what you do. So you could, you know, just role model that, you know, if that happens to you. How are you living with the obsession right now? I have a question for you. Uh-oh, she's my sponsee. How are you with that obsession right now?
I'm actually just doing my daily meditations. I'm actually not even really thinking about it. And it just came across when someone said that in the meeting, actually saying, like, it says recovered, and they actually pointed that out, like, on the front page. And I'm just like, it made me think, it's like, but no, like, I know all these women who have recovered, and that's what I'm working towards, and that's what I want. And knowing that I can recover from that, I can never recover from the allergy. And I mean, I'll always have that, but just that hope and everything with all the women around me, and just doing what you do and following those steps, like, that's where it just made me think. And I didn't know if other women might have that question, or when they're listening to the podcast or whatnot, coming across that just out when you go to AA meetings. Because I even heard it when I lived back in Denton. Someone had said the same thing, and I was just like, okay, well, it's just weird that it's so different when we're all going through the same book, the same tools and everything, looking for the same goal. So that's why I was just curious.
Yeah.
Great question.
Great
Great answer. Yeah. I like the answer. Like, are you living that? You know, love it. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Okay. So I know that I wanted to talk to you definitely about working with others, because obvious reasons. But you mentioned the 3 sides of the triangle, which I think is super important. And so I guess my first question is going to be, if you can speak to the 3 sides of the triangle, what that is, what that means, and what that looks like.
I would love to, because I will complicate things in life, and this is not complicated, and it's simple. It really is simple. And unity is basically that I'm going to find a group of people in Alcoholics Anonymous and fellowship with them. Simple as that. I'm going to go in and meet and greet people, make myself useful, maybe get on committees if that's what I like to do, but I'm going to empty their coffee pots. I'm going to put their chairs up. I'm going to, go up to 5 different people every time I go if I had never seen them. I'm just going to go up and say hello. And that's what unity is in a very practical sense. It is not going to meetings and expecting to get something like, oh, they didn't talk about what I need to hear today. That's kind of what I used to think. I'm going through something, I need a meeting. And my sponsor said, what? You need a meeting? We don't go to meetings for ourselves. So that's the unity part, right? But in return for that, you get all these connections with people and, it's just beautiful. And then recovery is pretty much just working the steps constantly, 10, 11, and 12 with, 10 with your sponsor or close friends or whoever in the program that you need to tell somebody, immediately what's going on. Salt, prayer, and meditation. If you're working the steps still, the beginning phase, that's recovery. All of those things. And then service, which I thought was, like cleaning the ashtrays and all that. No, service is actually working with other people. That's what service is. Actually, always have somebody in your life, if you can, that you're taking through the book. And that's not anything I can make happen. So don't get like, really too, overzealous or down on yourself if you don't have a bunch of people to take through the book. But you can go, you can always go to different places, H&Is, and you could really, go far enough to find somebody to take through the book. And you don't have to say, hey, do you want me to be your sponsor or whatever. And the book says we approach people. It doesn't say that we just go in somewhere and raise our hand, which is cool. We start off just raising our hand, but approaching people, hey, do you want me to take you through the book? Do you need help going through the steps? I've been fortunate enough to always have somebody in my life. I've been very blessed to have somebody in my life that I'm always taking through the book. That's service. And then carrying the message is the same, is kind of the same. You stand up and you tell people what you know about alcoholism. The book, I love the book. It constantly says we told them what we knew about alcoholism. So if you're new to the program and you're just getting sober and your sponsor's taking you through the steps, that's something that you'll be spiritually fit to do, is tell them about your experiences. Tell them what you know about alcoholism. Yeah. That's it. That's the triangle.
Thank you. You spoke on step 12, but I just wanted to hear some of your personal experiences, or if you can speak to the topic of working with others, because I just feel like you have that part of your life is so full from what I've seen, and I just feel like you have experience on that topic that would be beneficial to share.
I think the main thing that I've learned is to be available. I have to keep saying that, is that people respond if you put them, if they're important, if they're important to you. And people are very important to me today, very important to me. I get to have a great life, I'm real grateful for that. But it's really a great life that I get to put to the side for someone else. And that's an opportunity that I've never had. See, like I said earlier, it was always about what I needed out of life. And self will run riot. The alcoholic is an extreme example, and I was definitely the extreme example of that. I know that. And today, when I'm working with somebody, I put that to the side. You know, I'm available. I think that's the main thing, because it's not about just knowing the book. Because you read that book enough, you're going to know it. Read it with somebody, you're going to know it. I wouldn't even worry about that part. I wouldn't, because Alcoholics Anonymous already wrote the program. We don't have to write it. I have to be available, and I have to put that person first. That person is more important than, I need to go get my nails done, or I almost canceled this podcast too. Because I needed to do some work with somebody, but I was like, I better, it's a thin line. I still gotta keep my commitments. But people that I work with come first. They come first. I mean, I still have to take care of my kids, and they're getting bigger. So, I'm like, hey, pop something in the microwave. I'm on a video, or, the house is full of food, but they're spoiled. They want me to get up and put it on their plates. But, but sometimes I say, go get your plate and put it on there. I want to help somebody. I think the best thing I can give to somebody that's new in recovery about working with others is do it quickly. Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't be inside of your head thinking that's just like waiting to ask God for help or ask your higher power for help. It says in we Agnostics, we can start right here, right now. The same thing with working with others. Don't wait until you think you're ready, because you might never be. You're never going to be what that's a prejudice too. I have to use that word. I love that, because it's what I think sponsorship looks like. And who am I? Because wasn't I the same person that couldn't control the drinking and problems that piled up? So maybe I don't know what's best for anybody, not even myself. So I may have a few days sober, but that doesn't qualify me to make that decision. So I really need to go into this thing with childish faith. This takes us all the way back to step 2. This is a step 2 podcast, because because that's where I came to believe. That's where I came to, that my higher power is going to do all that for me, and all I'm going to do is be there. I'm going to be available. When they call the roll, I'm going to say, here. I'm here. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Crystal, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just, so what are some of the other things, or like things you say to yourself or do when you're not willing or ready to show up or be available?
A lot of this stuff isn't optional, Crystal. This isn't, it says they give you 2 alternatives. You can be doomed to an alcoholic death or accept spiritual help. You know what I'm saying? And so when you made a decision, see, I made that decision in step 3. I didn't even realize it. I was so desperate, y'all. I was over my life. I was done with Rosalind. She had oh my God, she had drove me into the ground. I was over her. I was done with her. So I made a decision to turn it over to my higher power. And when I made that decision, I meant it. But I didn't know that I said I would bear witness. I didn't realize what commitment that I made. That if God, as I understand him, would take away that obsession, that difficulty with alcoholism, that I would go out and carry them. I would work with other people. I said that. I said that. Yeah. And I meant it when I said it. And that's how I live my life. And I don't have the obsession. So what are the options? Go back to to where I was? Go get Rosalind back. Girl, she ain't coming back. Oh no. No. I know in the big book, I have to keep telling you how much I love that book. This guy is telling us about his spiritual awakening, and he said he wouldn't go back even if he could. I wouldn't go back even if I could. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, we're getting to the top of the hour.
Yay.
So before I ask my wrap-up question, does anybody else have a question they want to ask? No? All right. Well, Rozzie, first, I just want to thank you so much for being here with us today. Some good stuff was definitely said and talked about. So I always ask this question, and people interpret it however they want, answer it however you want. But it's, if you could leave us with one takeaway, being like, if you don't hear anything that I say, hear this, what would be the one thing you'd want us to take away from this conversation with you today?
I think the main thing would be step 2. It just stands out to me, is that I came to believe it. I came to believe it. And I think in the beginning, it wasn't so concrete. But as I work through the steps and work with other people, I believe it. I came to believe it. I believe it. You know, I don't have as much doubt as I did in the beginning. Probably none at all. A lot of that has turned into faith. I believe it. And how I came to that is through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This was so great. And it was so good to get to know you. So
I want to be on your podcast.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but
you're remarkable.
Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful night. Rozzie, it was so good to talk to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. I love you.
We hope you've enjoyed this From the Vault re-release of the Magdalen House podcast. Tune in every first and third Wednesday for a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services that we offer, visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channel by searching for the Magdalen House.